The following conversation is with Yohei Nakajima. This conversation, again, focuses heavily on the world of AI. Yohei is the founder of Pippin, a framework that has been used not only for the lovable character that is Pippin, the unicorn, but also for the specific approach on bringing this IP to children by creating a character and the ability to tell stories not only through animation but voice, and build out a framework that allows for him to get this in front of as many children and parents as possible, but to do it in a way that is leveraging his experience as a venture capitalist who is a builder at the same time to identify the gaps and the technology that he thinks can best get that done. Yohei is one of my favorite people that I've talked to so far, specifically because of how he is blending not only his experience on the investing side, but by getting his hands dirty and building. I think we need more people that are builders. Again, another great AI conversation. It's another framework that he builds very publicly, open source. We get into the discussion around open sourcing and a lot of the development work that we see happening in the industry. And I think it's very helpful. And again, just another conversation I think you all enjoy. As always, thank you to tuning in and watching these. It means the world to me. Awesome. Well, we're joined today with Yohei from Pippin, BabyAGI. There's in the meta of AI agents and frameworks. I'm very interested to talk to everybody who's building, very active. And it's funny because from a star standpoint, BabyAGI is one of the most starred projects on the market. And I just don't. I feel like there is a lack of, everybody's like jumps to Eliza, or they jump right to virtuals, but there is real stuff being done, like incredible development being done under your hand, and we got to talk about it, and we need to explore what you're up to, and better understand it because it's very interesting. And I'd love to get a better sense of where you see Web3 agents going and how you see AI overall going. But yeah, I'm excited for this chat.
Let's dive in.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of places we could start.
I think the best place to start probably is just who you are, and how you got here today.
Yeah, I'm Yohei. I live in Seattle, grew up here, but I went to high school in Japan for a couple of years. I lived in I went to LA for college and stayed down there for about a decade. So Seattle, LA, and Tokyo are kind of the three places I consider home. It's a triangle surrounding the Pacific Ocean. My name Yohei means Pacific,
Oh, amazing.
so I'll probably have to stay near this ocean for the rest of my life. But yeah, that's me. That's my background. I've been working with early stage startups for 15 years, investing in them for 10, with companies like Techstars, working closely with Disney. I worked with Scrum Ventures, working closely with Nintendo. So I've always been pretty close to the entertainment space through that.
On the venture side?
On the venture side, yeah,
Yeah,
working
yeah.
with Nintendo, and Disney, connecting them with startups. Started Untapped Capital, the venture firm I run today, in 2020. And over the last few years, built a brand as a VC who builds consistently. Building is one of my favorite things. When everyone's asleep in my home, I'll sneak downstairs and build for 2 hours, unless I'm too tired. And then on the weekends, I'll sneak in a decent amount of building there too. So that's kind of who I am as a kind of like what I do. And then did some no code stuff. NFTs in 2020, did NFT stuff in 2021. Launched Pixel Beast. Started building on top of OpenAI in 2022, about 6 months before ChatGPT came out. So have been building a lot in no code, Web3, and AI. And this kind of convergence of LLMs and Web3, where LLMs are kind of like no code AI, feels like a convergence of a lot of the spaces I've been building in for the last 3-4 years.
Amazing. Yeah, there's a lot of VCs, like they said, they're value add, that they understand what you're doing. They want to see you succeed. It's very rare that you see VCs that are really like getting their hands dirty, building, exploring the technologies that they're investing in. So I love to see that. But it has clearly led to the development of some stuff that people really enjoy using and like. And I love in your GitHub, you disclaim, you say, heads up, this is developed by a man who's never held a programmer job in his life, which I just found absolutely humorous. But I think it does speak to, again, your love for building.
When BabyAGI came out, it got a lot of attention, right? It was kind of the first non-chat based like AI open source to like really go viral. And a lot of like incredibly smart people reached out. You know, some people who were researching the space reaching out saying like, this is incredible, like this is the direction we need to start building stuff on top of. But on the other hand, I had all the doomers reach out as well. And some of them were actually like security researchers who made a good point, like this is dangerous stuff. Here are all the things that can go wrong, especially if you open source a tool like this and someone who doesn't know what they're doing starts playing with it. There's a lot of risks, right?
Yeah.
You could accidentally get someone to, you know, completely like nuke their computer. And I thought those were fair warnings. So that's what led me to sticking those warnings in there as like just to get their attention, because I don't want people to, you know, destroy their computers trying to run
Right.
CUDA, right?
We've seen the open source meta become super hot. And for the community to kind of be like, oh, it's open source, you know, we can see the Git. Uh, what is your, I mean, obviously you've open sourced your stuff, but what is your stance on that? I think overall, do you think that founders that are building right now should go that route, or is it kind of a case by case, or
I'd say it's case by case, right? If you're building something very new and innovative, I do think there's a lot of benefits to. I'm overgeneralizing. I think there's
yeah,
benefits to open sourcing because there's a lot of benefit to involving other people in that conversation, especially if it's new and innovative. And if it's new enough, then you can quickly become a name in the space by contributing to that larger conversation that's about to start happening. If what you're building is less of a new idea, but just a, you know, for example, a better, more secure, you know, more production ready version of an idea that's been around for a while, then maybe there's not as much benefit to open sourcing because the value is really in your ability to execute code. And so
right,
there's no reason to share that. But
right.
again, if your idea is more about like catalyzing a movement and spreading a new idea, then I think there's tons of benefit to open sourcing.
Totally agree on that. Yeah, it's been interesting though, where we've seen kind of the first question I get when I, you know, tell people, oh, this person's building something, they ask CA and Git, and I just find it hilarious. They're like, oh, is it, you know, it's open source, right? I'm like, I don't know yet, and they're like, oh, I don't want to look at it then. It's funny. I've haven't seen this before, and especially to see a lot of people that aren't even really developers, they're just traders at the end of the day. It's you know,
That's the convergence of Web3 and open source is interesting. That's new for me. On one hand, you have the monetary incentive tied to open source kind of activity, which is fascinating as a motivation because open source was already very successful as a movement. People contributed without that monetary incentive. I think there's pros and cons to having it tied to it, but I think it's fascinating to watch. And then on the other hand, from a crypto perspective, as you said, the repos and the fact that it's open source becomes a kind of trust factor
yep.
just because the code is public. So you're less likely to be, you know, skimmed by, you know, someone who has no code at least.
Right. It's kind of synonymous to when we saw the CCO movement back in the NFT meta.
Yeah.
I've compared it to that a little bit.
But it's not perfect though, because even though the information is public, not everyone has the ability to analyze it. And also it's hard to tell if it's like copied from somewhere else.
Correct. No, it's a good point. So coming back to Pippin and BabyAGI, let's dive into what you've built. I'd love to understand how you see yourself fitting into the ecosystem, because in the arena right now, per se, we have AI16Z, Virtuals, Creator.bid, Top Hat, Wayfinder. We have all these, you know, participants. Where do you see yourself fitting in, competing, and complementing?
So yeah, I think it helps to have the background of BabyAGI, right?
Mhm.
After BabyAGI went viral, the first version was 100 lines of code. So it's very, very simple. But the fact that it went viral probably showcases the ideas that were baked into BabyAGI that were interesting. Since then, I did like 7 iterations of BabyAGI pretty quickly over the course of 9 months after BabyAGI. And each iteration like introduced new ideas that I was experimenting with: tool use, complex tool use, parallel tasks, UI. There was a 6 month break where I explored knowledge graphs, and then I kind of went back and did another 3 or 4 iterations of BabyAGI. And so over the last 2 years, BabyAGI has been kind of um, my personal research on different things that could help autonomous agents start working better. And on one side, when I'm investing, I need to invest in companies that have the ability to generate revenue in the short term because they need to sustain and exist as a business. But on the research side, on the build side, I get to focus more on like purely hypothetical, general, difficult to do tasks because I don't have a need to monetize it. I get to work on some interesting ideas that are less monetizable in the short run. And so that's kind of been the history of BabyAGI. With Pippin, meme coin was just a catalyst for like diving into this, Web3 AI trend initially. But since then, when it started, I was just buying a meme coin that launched based on a picture I posted. And then after I bought a Twitter account, somebody said I should build an AI agent. I was like, oh, that's perfect. I've been doing this for a while. I should make it an AI agent. And after operating that for a month or two, somebody responded to one of my tweets saying you should launch it as a framework. And so over winter break, when I was refactoring, I relaunched it as a framework. I think where I sit, what I'll continue to do is I will continue to have new ideas on ways to make autonomous agents work better. And at this point, I'm really I don't see why I wouldn't just continue building this under the Pippin brand and make Pippin my kind of brand of open source autonomous agent research. And I'm already seeing kind of more people contribute and collaborate than when it was BabyAGI, because there's kind of a baked in community that's fascinated with, that wants to support the Pippin project.
Right. Right. Where do you see that evolution leading to now from current capabilities?
Um, so I think right now there's 2 frameworks out. There's the Pippin core framework, which
Mhm.
is approaching it from let's just get a digital being to operate 24/7 fully autonomously, like completely hands off, and then slowly add complexity into it. And so this is what inspired by Pippin the unicorn, which is fully operating 24/7 by itself. On the other hand, I'm also interested in not writing code myself. So this idea of self-building agents has always been interesting, and I've had some experimental stuff in the core framework for that. But I think there's a lot more experiments needed to be done to like get that working well. So Pippin Lite, which was released the day after Pippin's core framework, which is only 227 lines of code, kind of really shrinks all the ideas into as few lines of code as possible to get self-building to kind of work. And that 227 lines of code can auth into Twitter, auth into GitHub, auth into Airtable, and do various tasks. And it's amazing how much more you can do with less code. So I'll probably continue pushing on those 2 directions till I can marry the two, right? So I
Mm.
want something that can operate 24/7, but also has the capability to self-build tasks. And then,
Interesting.
but in marrying the two, then I think there's more research around kind of long-term memory. So that's another area that I'll probably start experimenting with and trying to get working.
Yeah, I saw that in a obviously Sam did the OpenAI demo yesterday, and I watched a couple videos of people trying to break the operator agent, and one of them tried to use the agent to have spin up another agent to build it something to complete a task. Um, and you could tell OpenAI had it blocked. They're like, nice try, but that is where we're.
Yeah, I did get it too. So I tried that too. I tried to get operator to use operator. It
Yeah,
was blocked. It said like nice try,
yeah,
but
nice try.
but I did get operator to use replit agent last night, and in
Oh,
30 minutes it went from end to end. From like I just gave it a vague idea and said describe it in detail to replit agent. It had replit agent build it. It deployed it on replit, tested the UI, wrote the feedback, and worked with the agent to fix the tool, and then deployed it on GitHub as open source with a README. Like an operator handled all. Like I just chatted with operator.
whoa.
I posted it like an 8 minute video on it on my feed. I fast forward through
Wait,
there.
that is actually fascinating.
Yeah, like I think I can sit there and watch like 4 operators building 4 different tools using Replit Agent and just like jumping in when it needs me.
I mean, does that not feel like the future of
It does absolutely.
it's
I,
hard to
I'm wondering if I can just have operator look at my email and just like ask me questions so I can just talk to it and tell it how to like respond to the emails.
it's funny. I was thinking about this is a weird tangent to go on, but I was thinking about everybody's building all of these different frameworks and agents and tools, etc. But at the end of the day, the most valuable one is like, what is my base knowledge and what do I want? And that is like that human interaction that you get with that operator. Um, but for that operator to just for you to have like a written down note of like, this is who Hunter Rel is, here are his goals, here's his like like to have all that history somehow plugged in is a really big part of that, because a lot of those email questions are going to be like, hey, you got this email for high school reunion, do you want to, like, should I reply yes to go? And for you, yes, you can, it's probably going to have to ask that, but there is some baseline to like meet them knowing like, oh, I loved my high school, I would love to
Yeah.
go back there, which, that takes a little bit of the human interaction out of it. um
But hopefully, if you tell it once, like, no, I never go to this,
yeah,
next year when
then
they
it
get to
knows it's
this,
picking
right?
up.
Like, and that goes back to that long-term memory, right? I think that's something we still need to work on more. It's
Well,
like, how do you,
we've seen that start to become like a huge part of all of these agents on I mean, on the RAG side, yes, but also short-term, long-term memory. uh
structured graph rag, hybrid
yep.
rag, right? Now there's like multi-graph rag where you have multiple graphs that can connect with each other. Yeah.
I but we have to focus there, because otherwise it's stupid. Like, it's the same concept of training these models, right? Like, bad data
Well,
in.
I think that's the biggest missing piece right now in terms of like all the orchestration pieces is figuring out long-term memory and pulling the right context in an efficient way from that long-term memory.
Do you think that's on the integration side or actual structure side? Like,
I think that's on the. I feel like that's on the orchestration side, right?
gotcha.
Like outside of the model is my guess, because I don't think we're going to be relying on the models to do memory unless we move off of like chunks of text to train models.
Right.
If we're training models on structured data, maybe, but I don't know how that works.
I at scale, I don't know how that would work either, unless, I mean, there you'd have whole companies that are just doing structured data creation at
Yeah,
that point, which, I mean, there are, I know
that's
X.
starting to happen.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I was gonna say X, I know, has an entire division at XAI that literally just does data formatting and, uh, I guess, feedback, and they test. It's insane. Um, but yeah, that's an interesting point. So Baby AGI has given light to Pippin, Pippin Core, Pippin Light. Um, what I want to keep diving into also, like, we're starting to get into it around like where it sits in
yeah,
the ecosystem right now.
yeah.
Um, because I think also there's a lot of people that are listening who are builders that are trying to understand, like, hey, I have an idea for an agent. Where should I go build this? Trying to understand like, why go look at Pippin and use it?
Um, so I think for well, as a community, I like to see myself as like a bridge between the AI community and the Web3 community. I'm sure there's other people who are being that bridge, but most of my followers actually are more pure AI and not into not Web3 people. So me working on Pippin, I get a lot of questions from AI people building AI companies or AI tools saying, hey, can you tell me a little bit more about the Web3 space?
Oh yeah,
Hey, somebody launched a token under my project name. What should I do? Right. Starting to get a lot of these requests.
really?
So I feel like I'm a trusted voice in the non-crypto AI space. And so I do think that that's a benefit to the crypto space. And then on the flip side, because I've been so deep in that space, I think I'm able to take some of the ideas that I'm familiar with and see from the AI for the non-crypto AI space and bring it in and introduce it to the Web3 space. I think, and most recently, Composio is an interesting auth tool, right? That was an interesting idea. That's not a crypto company, but now there's more exposure to tools like that
100%.
that exist, and I'm able to share that back with the Web3 communities. Hopefully, both sides kind of benefit from each other. So that's kind of where I see the positioning of Pippin as a community. On the tooling side, I'd say it's more for people who could build their own frameworks and want to experiment with other people's approaches to building frameworks to get their own ideas. And I know some people are already playing with building on top of my framework, but um, based on history, that's where I see people who are often reaching out and asking questions about my frameworks, or people who are kind of framework builder type level who want to experiment with new ideas versus somebody who's like newer to AI. I do think if you're newer to AI and you just want to build your first AI app that can do simple RAG, I think another framework would be better.
Right. Yeah, it's I often find that the questions being asked are what are the like how hard is it to stand up? What is my knowledge going to be? How like are there resources out there that'll hold my hand if I've never written code? The Python side of this also is I think a huge area to dive into because I know so many people who absolutely hate TypeScript, including myself maybe. Uh, and but also like the integration side is huge for, hey, if I want to spin up an agent that is going to do if I want to make the next AI XPT, um, are the tools and integrations there, and what is the lift going to be?
So the short
Um,
answer, yeah, short answer to that is right now, no, right? I think it'll take some time before we have those integrations. One thing I've been thinking, and I've talked to a couple of developers in the community, is I'm probably going to keep the core framework simple
hmm,
and just have kind of sample activities and skills. But what I'll probably end up doing, and what I'd like to see, is people building kind of specific use cases that have the skills and activities they need to spin up a certain type of Pippin, I guess, and
hmm,
then have a library of those. So I'll be building Pippin, the AI unicorn, which will have the TikTok podcast media type plugins. Instead of pulling all those skills and activities into the core framework, because if everyone did that, it would just be a bloated framework.
yep,
I'll probably spin that up as a separate repo that people can look at to learn how to use Pippin. And I think
exactly.
similarly to what you're saying, the AIXPT, I was looking at the cookie.fun. I think they're having a hackathon soon. I was like, that'd be fun to build, spin up an agent that looks at cookie.fun and tweets about it, which would kind of be like AIXPT. So if I decide to build that over a weekend, I can just open source that repo as a separate template, and then we just link to all the different templates so that people can build off of different types of templates. And I think once we get there, it'll be easier for non-developers to play with.
Yeah. Do I'm curious how you look at the developer versus non-developer mixture that we've run into because I know a lot of people who've never written a single line of code. And there's nothing against that.
Yeah.
I wanna highlight that I'm not trying to talk down, but because of Cursor, because of ChatGPT and Claude now, you have people who are like, oh wait, I actually have some ideas here. I can go and actually make these live. Um how are you looking at this new kind of like era of r- experienced devs working alongside newcomers who just are using these tools? Um, I mean, to me, it feels like we're about to enter like a really special era of coding and
Yeah.
software development. Some people are kind of throwing their hands in the air, being like, "No, leave it to the people who know what they're doing."
I, I mean, as somebody who's not classically trained in engineering of any sort, who has built a name for building interesting ideas with code, and I have a decent amount of who I would consider like really good devs who follow me because they think that my ideas are good. I think that it is for people who are interested. I'd love to encourage them to just try to get their ideas into code, right? Even if it takes 30, 40, 50 iterations before one goes viral. And one of the reasons I do things like use operator to use Replit agent and then I'll record that session and post it on Twitter is because hopefully that inspires more people to try things like that.
Right.
I hope that a couple of people who watch the video go, oh, maybe I should try that.
The
And then, yeah,
creating that content I think is huge also from like because I look at you again as like an onboarder, a steward. I mean, you're obviously a link between Web3 and the dev side of the world and the AI side of the world. And for you to be putting out content and explaining and kind of documenting, hey, here's what's happening in this ecosystem, um, is massive. I think you do deserve
thank
some
you.
recognition for that.
Thank you. Yeah,
Um,
I think from pretty early on, I was very public. I mean, even BabyAGI was written by ChatGPT.
Oh. Oh, yeah, I did
Yeah,
read that, yeah.
I was written by ChatGPT. The README was written by ChatGPT. The tweet announcement was written by ChatGPT. The quote unquote paper that's been cited academically was also written by ChatGPT.
Fascinating.
Yeah. And I
Fascinating.
was public about that, right? Again, to kind of share the idea. I
Yeah.
think it's a great use case of like, an idea guy who's good at using AI can have impact.
I hope that yeah, I hope people that are listening that 'cause I get a lot of DMs even from people that are like, "Hey, I wanna launch, this. Like, what do I should I do it?" Just do it. Like
And just keep shipping, right? I think if you go to yohei.me, which is my build in public blog, you see a whole bunch of stuff I posted. BabyAGI, right, the one that went crazy viral, was probably project number 70 if you go through my history. And honestly,
70.
yes, probably like AI tool number 70 that I pushed out. I was doing 1 or 2 AI projects a weekend. And when I released it, I did not think it was any different than any of the other 70. It was only through other people's reaction that I figured out that there was something special in there, which I highlight because I think a lot of people, I see a lot of people do 1, 2, 3 tweets about a project they built and it didn't go viral and they give up. And I think like make it interesting for yourself. So like you don't care who engages with what you share, and just like have fun building and shipping, and like over time you'll find something, it gets more and more interesting, and other people will notice.
Do you think people try to get their big hit on the first one too often, and that's what leads to kind of I try to take us away from like the token side, because you'll have people launch tokens and like, this is it, I've been working on this, and then it goes wrong, and then their reps kind of hurt and stuff. But like, I I feel like there's too many people that over index on one instead of saying this is one of many, and I'm just building. If this does work and land, we keep going with it. But it's a very we're being light on our feet and trying things out kind of mode.
Yeah, I think it's important to be practical about your expectations,
Mm.
right? And just the reality is there's so much noise out there that the likelihood that a project you work on is gonna, the first version of the product you work on is gonna go viral and everyone's gonna love it is just unfortunately low.
Right. Right.
Even though I've had a whole bunch of stuff go viral, I still am not sure when I post something. Sometimes I feel like something will go viral, but oftentimes it's not. It's something else, right? I'll work on something for 3 months, push it, it doesn't go anywhere, and then the random idea I had the next weekend like suddenly gets 3,000 stars.
Amazing. Amazing. I love it. Um, let's circle back to Pippin real quick. You mentioned while we were chatting about integrations, social media, TikTok,
Yep.
Twitter, YouTube, and all these other kind of channels for the output of Pippin. Walk me through that vision, and how you're approaching that, and what the goal for those activities are.
Yeah, so initially when I launched Pippin, right, because the framework is refactored off of the first version of Pippin, which I just built the AI unicorn. Because it was a unicorn, and partially because people were talking about mooding a lot, I was coming up with the realization that we have animal celebrities that are very simple, right? People go to the zoo and watch them like take a nap and eat, and they're cute. And I thought that seems like a really good place to start building a fully autonomous being because it's so simple. So the idea was, let's build a unicorn that lives in the latent space. It takes nap, it eats, it cleans itself, it goes on walks, and then occasionally it will communicate with the human world through social channels like Twitter. So today, right, it'll take a nap, it'll go on a walk. Going on a walk is just a GPT call to describe what the walk was like. But then if it tweets right after, it'll often reference something that happened in the walk. So I'm trying to kind of
Oh,
create this like, right, like if it happens to like go on a walk and see a mushroom field, the next
yep.
tweet might include mushrooms. I don't necessarily describe that in the tweet, but that's actually more similar to how we tweet,
Right.
right? I'll see something when I'm walking and I'll tweet about it.
Right.
So that's kind of how it was designed. And so the idea, I've done a podcast as well. So the idea is to layer on these different activities, like bedtime podcasts, YouTube, TikTok, which are social channels that Pippin can communicate with the human world through.
Right.
So
In different
continue,
modals.
exactly, and continue building kind of rich experiences in the back end and kind of tie them together so that like Pippin's day to day in his universe impact the story he's telling.
Oh, fascinating. And it also kind of strengthens I would say the story and the lore and the IP as well,
Yeah.
because it's rich content, and that's been a recurring theme through a lot of these conversations is, hey, we've only seen the Twitter agent side of this, and that has gotten we've beaten a dead horse
Yeah.
pretty hard on that at this point. Um, we need to actually expand though outside of this, because there's so much more that we can build
Yeah.
outside of this.
The
Um,
Bedtime Stories podcast quickly got to like top 10 in a couple countries on Apple Podcast.
Wait, for real? Wait, I had
Yeah.
I had no idea. Wait, you
And
go deeper in this. Go
I
deeper
can
into
tell you
this.
right now that if you go to Spotify and search for Bedtime Stories, there's probably like 3 to 5 real good brands. But a lot of them are just parents reading to their kids. So there's a lot of background noise, kids chiming in, the quality is not super high. And actually, AI, if you have AI talk to each other, there's still some awkwardness But if you have AI just narrating a story, it's actually very, very clean. I'm using 11 Labs for this.
Oh, fascinating.
And so bedtime stories with Pippin, the first few I did manually, and then I paused to do the refactor, but I want to get back to fully automating it, where it's posting one podcast a day. Um, I mean, I think it's a legitimate channel for an AI to build a big bedtime stories series for kids.
Oh my, this had never come across my mind before. How to, oh my God. So then you have the like the animation side, you have the
So that's
Instagram
why I started
posts,
building
you have,
animation. So like once I had the bedtime stories, I was like, wait, can I animate these and do a YouTube channel? Can I do, for TikTok, like how about maybe like a clean joke channel or like an animal trivia channel? We can do a couple of different channels on TikTok.
okay, I hit, this opens up a whole nother area. The personalization as well. For like, let's just go to like YouTube, for example. There comments, chats, it can remember who's, you can engage with those. The scalability of AI has now changed how engagement can happen at for all brands and companies with customers and viewers, etc. Um, we've never seen on the children's side any of these brands be able to go to the point where a kid can feel like, "Oh, my favorite character knows who I am. They remember from
Yeah.
2 weeks
Why,
ago."
why can't we log on somewhere, pay a subscription, and have our kid talk to Bluey?
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And I think parents would love that. They'd be like, "Oh, like they're
So
entertained."
yeah.
They're
But one challenge I noticed when I've exposed kids to some of the AI characters that I've come across is that they don't know that character. So I
mm,
think it's actually important to build the association first, which is why like bedtime stories and YouTube and TikTok's great, because if they've seen it many times, then they want to talk to the character. I think
right.
one challenge I've seen in the kids AI space is that they start with the AI first, and the kid's like, I don't know who this is.
You have to, I mean, the marketing there is meet them at the source, which is the parents. The
Yeah,
parents need bedtime stories. They want fresh new ones every day. Nobody's able to put out content unless you find a series, that's got a repository of, thousands of these bedtime stories. Um, wow, yeah, that is fascinating. I'm like sitting here, I'm like, I get it now. I totally get it. Um,
it's
not that
cool,
I
right? I think like yeah. I mean, why can't the next Peppa Pig or Bluey be both the character and the company and all the employees at once?
do is that like one of your goal? Would that be fair to say your goal is to be alongside Peppa Pig?
I mean, yeah. As far as the AI unicorn, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
if I'm not shooting for that level, like, what's the point in doing kids IP? I
right,
mean, there's so
exactly.
much money in kids IP, right? If you do it right, and if you can build a good AI character that's lovable, that spreads good positivity and good lessons that any parent would be proud to teach their kids, I think there's some interesting opportunity there.
Hmm, interesting. So the bedtime stories podcast has
So,
been out. It's been doing well.
yep.
The
It's been on
animations.
pause, but it'll get back once I add automation. Then I'm going to do different languages as well because 11 Labs has 29 languages.
Oh, yeah, this gets it makes you rethink like, and I know everybody says like content creators are in trouble, and they're in a bit of trouble here, which I agree with to an extent, but not fully. Um, I, I actually, what do you agree with that? Do you think content creators are gonna have their industry turned on their heads, or is it not that stark?
You know what's I've said that like with AI agents, as we start using them more, everyone's going to start acting like a manager. I think in the content space, it's going to be similar. It just
Mm,
people are going to be more like directors, right? So if you want to start at some point you're going to be like, I want to start a podcast for kids. You're not going to be sitting down, opening a book and reading it, but you're going to be designing the characters, the values, the lessons, and you're going to guide it. You're going to see how people react. You're going to say,
right.
hey, let's do this type of content more. Let's pick these channels. So it's like you're more directing how the content creator should build as a company, I guess build as a business
Right.
versus like being the content creator yourself. I
Oh,
mean, of course, that'll still exist, but I think more of the kind of being a director type of content creator will happen.
I agree. I agree. It's fascinating though. I mean, so I feel like you're the only one that I've heard mention the kid space before actually as well. Most of the stuff has been pretty degenerate. I,
I've been very like I think yeah, no swear words, like trying to keep the Pippin brand very clean. Like I have 3 kids, so we're pretty conscious of what our kids get exposed to brand wise. So that's something I've always had in the back of my mind with Pippin, because I want to be able to talk about the project with Pippin, show them the Pippin project, and I can't have stuff in there that I can't show my kids.
What do you think the biggest differentiator for what you're creating under Pippin would be from other, like what other frameworks might provide right now, or that you would like to build out that you're like, this is it, like this is special sauce?
I mean, again, everything's open source. I would say that anybody can, copy each other, and I'll see a lot more automations happen. Um, I think one difference for Pippin will be, hopefully, what you'll see is like me actively trying to build out the AI unicorn side, right? Like focusing more on the use case, because the framework's simple. There's a couple upgrades I want to make to it, and I'll keep working on it. But I think building out the framework based on actually trying to use the framework to build a business, I think is going to be a big difference, because I'll be open sourcing the actual unicorn piece too. So some people might look at the framework today and be like, I'm not sure exactly how I'd use it. But hopefully, as they see me migrate everything over to the Pippin, and maybe use it to, I might use it to run our venture firm account and come, a couple of different use cases. Hopefully, people will see that and will copy it and start adjusting it, and it become easier and easier to use for other people.
I love that. Man, this is so cool. I'm like, I absolutely
it's fun. I mean, I build for fun, and having this, having this audience is fun, and how, having kind of a community rallying around the stuff I build is fun, because I've always had kind of a vague community following the work I do. But this is this is really fun, the Web3 space.
It is. We're every day the AI space is kind of pushing forward exponentially. There's more stuff coming out. The tokenization side has been an interesting collaboration that, it's match made in heaven from a, technology. Like obviously AI is going to need the blockchain. How I guess also from like that perspective, like how do you see like there being an active token? How does that fit into your ecosystem? How do you view that guiding what you're doing? Some
Yeah,
people, because some people say like, hey, why does there need to be a token?
That's
I'm one
that's
of those.
fair. I mean, that's fair.
Yeah,
Absolutely. I mean, Pippin as a project wouldn't have existed if it weren't for the token.
yeah.
Right. So, like, first of all, the token is the reason this whole project exists. It built a community around my work. I got excited and built it. So the AI unicorn itself, the framework, all that's built around the token. And I think for me, what's been most exciting is having this kind of exploring this additional incentive to support open source, which is monetary, which really didn't exist. So that's something I want to experiment with. So one of the things I shared on a live stream, which was building out this platform. I'm working with an external group called Pippin Quests, which is kind of like a bounty board, but every bounty is actually a pool that anybody can contribute to. And the people who contribute get to vote on who deserves the bounty.
Ah,
So it's like a mini DAO almost, but like it kind of avoids needing to set up a whole DAO. It's like
right.
you can just pool into whatever open source projects you want. Going to build it so you can, it's going to be Pippin based, and you can pool Pippin to like ask people to build an open source projects for you. And so I have a couple projects I'd like built, but using this platform, I can seed that capital. But if other people see something I post that they want to see happen a lot, they can actually add more capital to it and then help vote on who succeeded in that.
Oh, fascinating. I I think that's the power of having this open source kind of build in public, ask publicly, is that you'll get places and things will happen so much faster than otherwise you would have to have a team basically around you, and now your full attention and time is being pulled into managing that and making sure things are on schedule. Now it's okay.
How can we make it as decentralized as possible? Can one person with one good idea convince three other people to help pool, and then like because of that, then you'll have somebody from somewhere else in the world just like build it and open source it? And
Do you
can we
think that
accelerate open source like that?
that's how the largest future IPs and brands are gonna look down the road, like 10 years down the road? Do you think that the centralized approach that we see now for, like Paw Patrol is a great example, and I'm kind of sticking the kids, like
Yeah,
that's a centralized company, right? But will there be competitors that are popping up that are fully decentralized?
I agree with you that almost all big kids IP recently has been largely from a centralized institution. But historically, it was much more decentralized. It was, the Santa Claus and stories that people were telling each other. There was nobody who held the IP. I'd like to think that with Web3 we can bring that back. where nobody
does
controls
that
the
require I get on the generation side. This is these are some interesting conversations. The machine of children's IP flows around the three spokes of story and IP and characters, the content that is produced from that, and then I guess for me, the gamifications of gaming and how that actual interaction with those characters can be done, and then the merchandising side, which is the one of the more profitable sides. I think on the content creation side, AI has absolutely found a way to decentralize that and have that be automated and for decentralized groups to all do their own things off of that IP. I do think what we're there though on the gamification side and the merchandising side back to, and that also has to like, where does that value flow go to?
That's
Is
a
the
good
other
question. I'm
side.
not sure. I mean, I think Bored Apes was a great example of
Mm,
IP example, and some people did build businesses around it, where the ownership of the ape gave you the license. In the case of Pippin, pretty early on, I just put it in public domain.
mm-hmm.
I did like a CC0 license on it, so anybody can do anything they want. Again, it's kind of early for that, but hypothetically, anybody right can build a Pippin shop and make Pippin plushies and sell it and make business for themselves. I think if we're going to build a decentralized kids IP is going to be a big thing. I think the money flow also has to be decentralized. Or actually, I'd like to think that it can happen without a central wallet that the money needs to flow through.
Right, right. Where money just flows to where it needs to go to instead
Yeah.
of like going, oh, and then we'll distribute or having like a splitter
That
contract.
is one thing I noticed about the crypto community is that a lot of people keep pushing to have a central wallet, a central team, and to make that bigger and bigger. But with quests, I want to expand with the idea of like, can Web3 really live up to its promise of like not needing a central wallet, not needing a big central team? Can you build systems where people can grow the ecosystem in a
Mhm.
decentralized way without relying on a large central wallet?
Trustlessly,
Yeah.
yes.
Oh,
I on the IP side, the only this is just coming to mind. Overpass IP. I'm not sure if you've looked at what Luca at Pudgy Penguins is doing with their IP company that they internally spun up. But basically, being able to have a bulletin board where there's IP opportunities, and you can literally just go in, verify you own the NFT that
yeah,
you own, and then you can claim that royalty from, or
that's
the
cool.
payment or whatever. But that's taking out this idea of, okay, if I wanted to go license, um God, I mean, I with the soccer team, maybe like we've even gone through this. Like, there's legal documents, there's all this stuff you have to get proofs, and it's a whole back and forth process of making sure things are done. Here now, blockchain verifiably, I own this. Give me this money, send it to this wallet. We're done. And if I move the NFT or anything changes, then void. Like very very simple.
That's really cool. I think Story Protocol is doing some cool, interesting things there as well around
Mm.
IP.
Are you looking at other chains and other protocols for how you can leverage what you're doing right now to amplify that?
I'm absolutely looking at all technologies.
Okay.
I'm not. I wouldn't say I'm by any means chain specific.
Hmm.
That being said, specifically for Pippin, the token is on Solana, and one of the things I do like about the different chains is the communities that build around the chain. So I do feel a strong bias towards Solana chain at this specific moment. But again, like I'm tracking all the innovation that's happening with ordinals, with virtuals on base, and so on.
Interesting. Are there any that you find interesting? I guess is another way to also frame that question.
Yeah, I mean, I think virtuals. I mean, the whole tying the token to pay for inference, I think, is interesting. Right, taking using the transaction fee. I think they're running the inference themselves in their case, but I think if you tie something like that, or if they move it to like decentralized inference, you can really imagine an agent that somebody can spin up that like nobody has the ability to take down, which is pretty fascinating.
Yeah, I had Ether Mage on earlier in the week, and the way that he views the future of AI and how they want agents to basically be autonomous, undeletable, live basically in a way where nobody does control them, but they also are controlling other agents. It gets really interesting.
There was there was interesting news about Sam Altman and World Now the company is called World.
Yep.
How they want to use that digital identity to basically verify like a human-backed bot activity, which is fascinating. It's very big brothery, but that would make it harder for a non-human tied agent to work in the world. I'm imagining these like agent economy, but then like the ones without a human verified attached to it get like not let into certain clubs because only human verified bots are allowed to engage in this on
Oh,
this
that is
API
that is that is
platform.
true. Yeah, because I was joking about with
But
him.
then
I was
people are
like,
going to fake it, right? People are going to sell their human identity to like
yeah,
agent builders. They're like, I don't even do stuff online. You can rent my human identity for your agent.
the markets that we see pop up. I mean, I every time I talk to somebody, it's like, oh, well, back when Facebook launched, I was selling like Facebook groups, and then now it's, oh, I'm selling, now it's you have access to like call groups, and like there's always going to be like that, oh, like where's the edge, how can I, if I can't get into this, like people will look for that. At some point it will literally be your identity
Yeah,
to prove an agent is owned by you or is backed by a human, which
yeah,
is which is crazy. This is some Black Mirror stuff.
yeah. But I mean,
um
we already have buildings of people live stream shop like selling stuff on live stream. It doesn't feel that different from that.
it doesn't, you're right. That is also true. That whole industry gets turned on its head as
I mean,
well.
that's all pretty dystopian too, to some
Yeah.
extent. No.
um
On a more positive side, one thing I wanted to mention that I thought was relevant because you were asking about like blockchain and agents. Um, I remember when I was in LA with working with Disney. This was around 2014. There was suddenly like a big, sort like big growth on the tech space within Los Angeles. And one thing that was very noticeable was the amount of innovation that pushed forward because it was LA founders. And so companies like Maker Studio and all these like very entertainment influencer focused companies suddenly popped up because you had LA founders who were very exposed to the LA space. And I remember that like being very noticeable. And one of the things I'm noticing now is that as Web3 over the last 3 to 6 months has really focused on AI and agents, the amount of innovation and creativity around like financial products tied to AI agents has like really blown up. I feel like I've been exposed to so many more interesting, unique, like financial agent ideas because the people building agents are now kind of crypto native, and that's kind of how they think. So that was something I wanted to make sure to bring up because you had asked about it before.
I mean, there's a huge dollar component to most of this. I would say, you kind of got roped into it. You were just building, and then all of a sudden, a token got attached to it, and you got pulled in. But for the most part, people are thinking about, okay, if I build this tool and attach a token to it, I will make money, right? Um, but they're also thinking more and more, we're seeing this like, okay, if I build an agent that can trade for me, if I build an agent that can take the hive mind of a group chat and execute off of that, if I can build an agent to actually do the task I want it to do on chain, we start to see that we do start to head to a very autonomous financial world where things are just kind of happening,
Mhm.
and there's goals set. And I think another area that is worth touching on is about like the proactiveness of an agent having goals and what their tasks are and their objectives are and how they achieve that, is one that we're starting to see become a huge topic, because previously a lot of these have been glorified wrappers of ChatGPT who's they didn't really have a goal. They were just they knew, okay, every 10 minutes send this prompt and post it.
You know what would be cool? I just thought of this randomly. Is because if we're letting the AI agent do stuff, like as someone who's building it, I know that like oftentimes I need to go in and tweak it, maybe adjust the prompt, maybe update the prompt. But you can imagine like an AI agent DAO where the DAO gets to vote on like updating the prompt. It's like, hey, our agent's doing a list a little bit. Like I want to propose this update to the prompt, and then like the DAO votes on whether we accept the prompt change, and then like it passes, and like the prompt
It's like a
changes, and
personality
the AI
DAO.
agent behavior changes a little bit because we felt like it was doing this too much or that too much.
Interesting. Oh, that is interesting.
Um,
Do you think, where do you see DAOs going? Because I've had a very strong feeling that DAOs in their previous state very rarely worked because of incentive misalignment. Many people have said the future of DAOs is actually AI agents being the participants of a DAO. Many people are saying that the future is a group of humans voting and voting on the trajectory of a agent, like you've just said. Um, where do you see the best use case or your favorite use case or most interesting use case, wherever you want to go with it?
Well, the one we just talked about, I think, is fun and interesting. I'd love to see that experiment. I actually think, though, more so like getting an AI to analyze how and why a DAO, like more like managing a DAO, right? Because I think when you get a whole bunch of decentralized people to try to collaborate, people are on different levels. People need different communication, right? You can't have the same communication to all members of the DAO because some people are very active, some people are not as active. And I think if you use AI correctly, being able to manage the kind of personalized communication on a personal level, right? If I'm part of a big DAO, but I only care about this subsection, maybe I only get those alerts. Being able to chime in and like make sure that arguments are, helpful arguments instead of people fighting. I think AI could be used to try to solve figure out what the problems were with DAOs. I think that would be one of the more interesting use cases.
That I know a few DAOs. I would love that. If anybody's building that, contact me.
I built a mod for our Discord. I'm going to be building a whole bunch of tools for Pippin. We'll see. I don't. There's probably really fun tools I don't even know about that I'll build. But my mod is pretty fun. It's an LLM based mod with a full UI. I can create rules and warning levels, and if somebody breaks one of the rules, it'll immediately warn them. If the warning level requires a delete, it'll delete the message.
Oh wow.
If the user crosses a certain threshold, which is in the configuration settings, it'll mute them for X number of hours or ban them.
Oh, fascinating.
And so it's pretty strict right now, which I think might be killing some of the conversations, but I'll also make it lax over time. But there's no spam in my Discord right now.
Yeah, and I was saying tools like that where a human really does not need to be sitting in a Discord moderating it, they're gone. Those are a thing of the past. Somebody will come out with a tool that basically anybody can spin up their own version of that, and I think everybody's going to use it. Every single Discord will have it.
Well, if you want mine, it's called Pippin Mod and it's open source. So let
Oh,
anybody.
is it?
Yeah.
All right. Well, Gabe, I know you're watching. Get to work. Um, yeah, I mean that right there, that's the power of open source. Where I would love to have a tool like that. I know many others would, and all of a sudden they can go and spin that up with very very minimal work.
Yeah.
Um, the more we see things change, I also want to come back to I think Pippin from like a developmental standpoint. And also I think also another area to hit before we even get back on the developmental standpoint is the community around Pippin has been absolutely amazing. I've noticed how engaged they are. They absolutely love it. They seem very bought into what you've built, which I think you deserve as well. Um, Talk to me about the community side of building Pippin, and how you're approaching that, and I guess how that's impacted your development, and how you're approaching, I guess, the entire project.
I mean, I think I have to point out that the initial community around Pippin was not formed by me, right? Like
Mhm.
again, the token launched and I joined the community. And I'll say that even until recently, I mean, even today, the Telegram, like any of the listings, like there's community members who are just doing things to run the community, right? Like I'm not part of running that. So
Right.
there's so many things happening without me on the community side, on the Web3 side. Um, what I think I'm spending more time on is focusing on building up the developer ecosystem community, but less so like building the community, but more so just creating a place for people to talk to me about stuff I've been building. That's something I've always lacked, like just have put aside. I just never got around to building and spending time, but this feels like the right time to really build out a place where people can ask me questions, and people have already jumped in, asked questions about the Pippin framework, and thanks to my mod, there's no noise. So I've been able to go in and answer every question that's asked from people who are building on top of the framework, which is great. What I think I love most about the current community is that I feel like we've exposed a lot of interesting AI ideas to people who are more crypto native.
Hmm.
Also, we've exposed a lot about kind of what's happening in this Web3 space to a lot of people who are more AI native and aren't familiar with it. And
Love
so I do love when, I mean, at this point, it's more than once a week. I have somebody in the AI space saying, "Hey, somebody launched a token with my project name. What should I do?"
it. It's
Unfortunately for most people, especially if you're building a full company, I'm like, don't deal with it right now. But
oh my god.
and some people dive in and they're like, "Hey, I just got involved in a token. Like, can you walk me through this?" Is another question I get.
That I that's I find it funny at the same time as I find it like it's like come on guys, like that's not the way to onboard people. And I get it, like there's people that only
It
see
worked on
dollars signs.
me.
It worked for you.
But I don't think it's for everybody. The CTO thing.
No.
It worked great for me. I'm loving it.
What was your before this, like what was your participation within the crypto space?
So I did an NFT collection called Pixel Beast.
Right.
It was active, during the kind of NFT boom. Again, I use it as an exploration ground. So we had a community of VCs and founders who were meeting once a week on an event platform. We started doing demo days, showcasing products. Um, and it was the first integration for probably about a dozen different startup tools because a lot of founders would reach out saying, "Hey, I'm building a tool for NFT collections. Can you demo it?" So I would usually integrate it, and then that would be part of my diligence in deciding to invest. And Pixels, which was the number 2 game to hit a million DAU, their huge game on Ronin.
Yep. I'm an investor.
That was a launch from the community. We were actually using the Pixels platform before they were a Web3 company.
Oh, no way.
We were using them as our weekly events platform. I actually gifted Luke his first NFT, which was a Pixel Beast. It convinced him to join our event, and then asked him during that event, "Can you build it so we can walk around as our Pixel Beast?" Which he did. And then that turned into, and then he decided to pivot into Web3 game, and that's when we invested.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that was my history with crypto was the Pixel Beast Pixels, and we still have an active Pixel Beasts guild that owns a couple of farms within the Pixels game.
And then you're still very active in the VC world, I assume, at the same time, focused on I guess the vertical around gaming as primary, or
no, as a VC, we're generalist. I look at everything, but one thing we take our pride on is identifying trends early, understanding where technology is headed, being in the trenches with builders, trying to contribute to the ecosystem as a builder ourselves, and then investing in awesome founders we meet along the way.
outside of the primary and very obvious AI trend that you guys have obviously identified and yourself have identified, what else are you seeing that you find extremely interesting that you think people should have their eye on right now?
I mean, it is definitely still AI. I mean, a couple of areas that I'm fascinated in. I think, simulated reality being that large bucket that covers VTubers, AR, VR. I mean, even AI influencers, I think, kind of falls into the simulated reality. I think that's a space that's really growing right now. A lot of the research there also overlaps and goes into robotics as well, right? Teaching an AI to operate in a 3D world, whether it's real or virtual. There's overlapping research, so we're starting to feel like we're almost at a point where we're going to start seeing robots at people's houses.
Right? Yeah, that feels very soon. The robot side feels very soon. I would say the first one obviously is the vacuum, and yeah, every so often I see like the next thing getting kind of like automated. I'm like, all right, well, at some point there's gonna be
a couple people in our neighborhood have the lawnmowers.
The lawnmowers,
charge themselves.
It's coming. It's gonna be interesting when dogs start becoming robots. That's gonna be like the weird one as well, because it'll happen. To an extent, hopefully.
I met someone with a robot dog once. It was an older lady who had recently lost her dog, and her kids got a robot dog, but she just wasn't old enough. She didn't have the energy to like take a dog on a walk. And I was like, that's actually not a bad use case.
That's not a bad use case. Yeah. It's gonna be such a weird future, man.
Yeah.
Do you think and I asked this kind of out of like a personal question, and also I lived in LA. I know a bunch of people that I would consider like influencers. The simulated reality, the people, the avatars, how far out do you think we are from that becoming like a thing?
I don't think we're far out. I mean, we already had a couple of, right? Like there's like the Michaela, and there's already been a couple of AI based influencers that have kind of gone viral. I think we're not far from the point where the fact that they're an AI influencer is not that novel, right? It's more about the influence they're having. And I think just like with human celebrities, ultimately we like celebrities because we associate ourselves with something they represent. And that's why there's a lot of different types of human celebrities, and we pick our, we like country singers if we go, if we like country and so on. I think we'll start seeing that in AI influence as well, which is like there'll be AI influencers that like you like because you're this type of person versus if you're this type of person, this is an AI influencer more you'll like more.
That's that's probably one of my favorite things you've said this entire time. Not to take away from anything, but it's interesting that in the what feels like the very early days, everything feels novel. When you extrapolate that out, all of a sudden, how do you start identifying what will not win, but like what how will people adjust to what they like and kind of start supporting? And I think that what you just said there is the perfect way to kind of approach how people will be engaging with these agents. Um, it really will be to like what do they like and what is my flavor.
What's your agent's brand identity, right?
Yeah,
How does it stand out amongst the other agents that are out there?
that puts a huge emphasis on creativity, ideas, and I guess what you like, how you align personality, etc. And I think that all kind of starts at who's creating the agent. Like that doesn't just come out of thin air.
Yeah. Working with Nintendo and Disney, one thing that really stands out, and like I feel like it's like a lesson they both hammered into me, and something it's obvious in hindsight is like the biggest entertainment companies in the world have always historically leveraged the latest technology to give people a new way to experience characters, right? With Disney, with
Mhm.
their first colored animation film, Nintendo really early in gaming and helping you build a connection to Mario through gaming. But in both cases, it was not just the technology that made them successful. If anything, people actually don't know about the technology as much, but it's ultimately the storytelling that leveraged the technology that helped them be successful.
That yeah, exactly. And this is just a new way of storytelling, a new way
Yeah.
of
And so
interacting.
there's a new technology to tell new types of stories. So people who I think can build, storytelling engines that leverage the latest technologies and figure out new ways for people to build, a relationship with these AI influencers. Or
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah, I think that how Disney will make it so Mickey Mouse will know who like the last interaction you had with him and can reference that
yeah.
and can send you a video on your birthday and say happy birthday, happy sixth birthday. I hope you did well in baseball last year. Something like we're getting to that
Only if you fill out your Disney Plus profile.
and yeah, exactly. Exactly. Oh my god. Um, well, Yohei, I can't thank you enough for the time today to hop on and chat. I've huge takeaway from everything you said, and it has I think added some good reference points on how to approach not only what you're building but the entire AI industry overall. If there's anything that people should be doing to make sure that they're staying up to date with what you're doing, to engage, join the community, let me know. Let them know
Yeah,
now.
I mean, follow me for the latest updates on Pippin. I know there's like Telegram chats and scams around, so always be careful. I always post stuff on Twitter before I post anywhere else, so that's a good way to verify. Pippin.love is the website. You can find our Telegram channel, which is our token community. Still need to add the Discord. I'll do that this weekend. But our Discord is our developer hub community for anybody interested in building on top of Pippin or the Pippin framework. And if you build anything on top of Pippin or inspired by ideas from Pippin, if you share it, I'd love to help promote it and get the word out about the kind of experiments you're running around building autonomous agents.
I I appreciate you coming on here. I appreciate the kind words throughout the time we got to talk. Thank you everybody for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next one, and thank you once again, Yohei.
Thanks for having me.